All right. Now, armed with that, let's talk about the evidence on what we know about how labor supply responds to wages. That's the theory. Now let's go to the evidence. Now the evidence, once again, wasn't that interesting when it was normal consumer goods because income substitution effects go the same way, so it wasn't that interesting. It's interesting for labor because we're not clear whether substitution effects dominate or not. We're not clear if substitution or income effects are bigger. Okay? So to teach this, I want to cast your mind back to a long distant era when I was a kid, the mid-70s, when we had a pretty stereotypical sexist workforce where basically men worked and women largely stayed at home. Mid-70s, it was starting to transition, let's say early 70s. Okay? Now, some women worked and some men didn't. But by and large, men worked and women stayed home and raised the kids. Okay? In this era, I want to think about what we intuitively think the effect of wages on labor supply should be. I want to break that down into income and substitution effects. So let's consider two groups. Let's consider married men and married women. And let's look at the substitution effect for each group and the income effect for each group. And obviously, I'm not going to give numbers here, but I just want to talk about our intuition about whether these things would be big or small. Let's take the substitution effect. So the substitution effect is we've changed the relative price of leisure. Let's say wages go up. We've made leisure relatively more expensive. Is that going to have a big or a small? We know the sign. That's clearly going to make men work, clearly going to make people work harder. Right? That's the substitution effect. Is that effect going to be big or small for men, and why? Or likewise, big or small for women, and why? In a world where most men work and most women don't. Is the substitution effect going to be big or small for men or women? Can anyone give me intuition about the relative size of those things? Yeah?
It's going to be large for women because they spend a large amount of their time at home not working.
Well, okay, but you're actually getting into a bit of the intuition for the income effect. For 1 second. But let's go further with that. They do spend a lot of time not working. The substitution effect is about my willingness to substitute leisure for to substitute and do more out of leisure into labor. Once again, I'm calling raising kids leisure. My wife would kill me. Okay, I'm calling that's in the leisure category. That's because we have a two-state model here. Why might women be less willing to make that substitution? Or, I'm sorry, why might women be more willing to make substitution? Why might men be very unwilling to make that substitution? Why might men be unwilling to substitute out of the labor force? Why might men be very unwilling to substitute from labor force to leisure? Women be more willing to substitute? Yeah?
I guess like in the 70s, most men worked jobs that they cared a lot about, and women were like secretaries. So I would say they enjoyed work more.
So one reason is they enjoyed work more. That could be one reason. What else? Yeah? There's nothing else for them to do. Fathers didn't give a shit about their kids in the 70s. Okay? You know, fathers just kind of worked and then played golf. Okay? Basically, they couldn't stay home and raise their kids. They weren't stay-at-home dads. Okay? They didn't stay home and raise their kids. And if they stayed home, they wouldn't have anyone to hang out with because all the other dads are working. So the substitution effect is about how likely I am to substitute for one activity to the other. No guy's going to substitute and say, I'm going to take Thursday afternoons off so I can sit by myself. There wasn't internet. Okay, they're not just going to take Thursday after by themselves. So substitution effect here is going to be small because there's nothing to substitute into. Okay, there's nothing to substitute into. Okay, it's like the joke about the priest who, after 20 years of dedicated attendance at church, decides he's going to take one Sunday off, and he just decides he's going to do it, and he obviously can't tell anyone, so he sneaks off to the golf course and plays golf, and God is watching with an angel, and they watch him. In the first hole, the priest shoots and gets a hole in one. And the angel says to God, how did you let him get a hole in one? And God says, who's he going to tell? So basically, it doesn't do him any good if you can't tell anyone. But men just aren't going to work less because there's nothing to do. Women, on the other hand, have more flexibility. Okay? They have leisure time. There is some childcare. There's some women working, some not. Okay? They have more flexibility, so they're going to have a bigger substitution effect. Substitution effect. God. You guys are, okay. They're going to have a bigger substitution effect. No, you guys, like, I ask a question, you're quiet, but I make one mistake, you're on my ass. Okay, so let's apply that diligence to thinking about good questions and not just criticizing me. Okay, so basically, so the substitution effect is going to be larger for women because they have more flexibility substituting in and out of the labor force. Okay, questions about that?